To make any man truly chase you, you must first cease to exist as a collection of tactics, behaviors, or manipulations. The pursuit begins not in the outer world, but in the symbolic dimension, where the soul speaks in image, mood, and movement. At the heart of this psychological magnetism lies the archetype of the Anima, the feminine within the male psyche. When you embody this archetype, not superficially, but as an inner truth, you do not merely attract a man, you activate something ancient and unconscious within him. The Anima mystique is not a set of behaviors, but a psychological presence. It is the aura of the woman who is inwardly alive, emotionally attuned, and not defined by external validation. She does not offer herself to one, but neither does she withhold herself to punish. She moves according to her own rhythms, subtle, intuitive, and dream-like. In this, she becomes an image that lingers in the mind of a man long after her physical presence has disappeared. This image is not always sweet or docile. The mystique of the Anima includes the wild, the untamed, and the deeply instinctual. She may be nurturing, but she is also dark, unknowable, and sometimes dangerous. Her moods change like seasons, and it is precisely this unpredictability that enlivens the male imagination. The man does not chase what is already possessed or fully known. He chases what symbolizes his own psychic completeness, what he senses but cannot name. When a woman embodies this mystique, she becomes a vessel for meaning. Her silence is not empty. It is full of suggestion. Her laughter does not simply entertain, it opens a portal into forgotten joy. Her sadness is not a plea for rescue, but a sacred emotion that mirrors the depth of human experience. She evokes rather than explains. She invites rather than demands. She seduces not by performance, but by presence. This presence requires inward cultivation. It cannot be feigned. To embody the Anima mystique, a woman must be in touch with her own soul. She must descend into her depths, her fears, her wounds, her longings. It is there, in the inner sanctum, that she finds her truth. And when she returns from those depths, she is changed. She no longer seeks to be chosen, she chooses herself, and paradoxically, that self-possession makes her irresistible. The man, sensing this, may not understand it intellectually, but he feels it in his bones. He is drawn to her without knowing why. He begins to project onto her all the images he carries within. The lover, the muse, the goddess, the healer, even the destroyer. She becomes, in his psyche, the gateway to his own transformation. This is not personal. It is archetypal. The chase, in this context, is not merely romantic pursuit, it is a mythic journey towards self-integration. Many women today are taught to externalize their power, to gain influence through appearance, status, or strategy. But the Anima mystique subverts all that. She does not need to be louder, brighter, or more perfect. Her power comes from being deeply herself, in a way that is not immediately accessible to others. This subtlety creates a tension, a pull. The man must work to uncover her, and in doing so, he uncovers himself. The woman who embodies this mystique knows the value of withdrawal. She understands that revealing everything too soon kills the mystery. She speaks, but she also remains silent. She gives, but never all at once. She is kind, but not needy. She may appear warm and inviting one moment, then introspective and distant the next. This oscillation is not manipulation. It is the nature of depth. The soul moves in cycles, not straight lines. Such a woman cannot be reduced to roles. She may be a mother, a lover, a professional, a friend, but she is not confined to any identity. She contains multitudes, and it is this inner multiplicity that keeps a man wondering, reaching, yearning. He chases because she is not a destination. She is a mirror, a challenge, a riddle. She is a living symbol of his own psychic wholeness yet to be realized. This embodiment is not about pleasing men. It is not about being desirable for its own sake. Rather, it is about being true to your inner nature, so true that your mere existence evokes archetypal resonance in others. A woman who lives this way may appear ordinary to the world, but in the eyes of a man attuned to his inner world, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, but because she already is. In the silent dance of psychological attraction, withdrawal is not absence. It is the space in which projection is born. Many women are conditioned to believe that connection is maintained through constant presence, reassurance, and emotional labor. But from a deeper psychological vantage, the opposite is often true. When a woman withdraws, authentically, not manipulatively, she allows the man's unconscious to begin its work. He begins to see her not just as she is, but as he imagines her to be. This is not deception. It is the ancient dynamic of projection, the foundation of most human infatuation. A projection is not a lie. It is a psychic image, a soul-based expression of inner longing that attaches itself to an external object. In relationships, especially early ones, individuals do not see the other clearly. They see fragments of themselves, their wounds, ideals, and unlived potential cast outward onto the figure before them. This phenomenon is universal and unavoidable. It is not inherently unhealthy. In fact, it is often the engine of romantic pursuit. The important question is, what kind of space do you offer for such projection to occur? When a woman is always available, always explaining, always seen, the mystery begins to collapse. Mystery is not about being vague or playing games. It is about allowing the unknown to remain alive in the relationship. Constant availability kills this. It removes the necessary blank canvas upon which the male psyche paints its deepest yearnings. Withdrawal, then, becomes an act of psychic generosity. It is not coldness, but an invitation. An invitation for the man to fill in the spaces with his own symbolic material. A woman who understands this steps back not out of fear, but out of power. She knows that in her absence, a kind of psychic echo remains. Her laughter, her glance, her words, these linger. In her silence, these fragments begin to grow inside the man's imagination. He replays them, reinterprets them, even romanticizes them. And with each passing moment of distance, he becomes more engaged, not less. He begins to ask questions. Who is she, really? What does she think of me? Why does she haunt me in this way? Such a woman is not withholding to manipulate. She is simply centered in herself. She has no need to flood the space with noise, approval, or validation. She knows that connection is not maintained through constant contact, but through psychic presence. This presence is more powerful than physical nearness. It is the felt sense of being remembered, sensed, and energetically alive in the other's mind, even when not physically together. In this withdrawal, she invites not just projection, but transformation. The man begins to enter his own psychological material. His longing for her becomes a longing for his own wholeness. She becomes, through her absence, a symbolic figure, part muse, part mystery, part mirror. She awakens in him a hunger that goes beyond the personal. He begins to chase not just her, but what she represents, the healing of an inner split, the completion of something missing. The modern woman is often taught to fear withdrawal. To pull away might mean to lose him. To be quiet might mean to be forgotten. But this fear is based on a surface-level understanding of male psychology. If a man forgets you the moment you pull away, he was never chasing you to begin with, only chasing what was easy. True psychological attraction cannot bear the weight of full revelation too soon. It must be layered, like a story. Each chapter revealed in its own time. Each moment of absence, a page left blank for the reader to fill. Withdrawal also allows the woman to preserve herself. It grants her time to return to her own center, to engage in reflection, creativity, solitude. These are not luxuries, but necessities for a woman who seeks to embody her depth. A woman who is always externally engaged loses access to her own symbolic world. And without that world, she cannot remain the object of meaningful projection. She becomes, instead, a fixed image, flat, complete, and easily discarded. By retreating, the woman gains power not through dominance, but through presence. A presence that does not require constant proof or performance. This is a quiet power, but a potent one. It shifts the dynamic entirely. The man, faced with the open space left by her absence, begins to fill it with imagination, memory, fantasy. In this process, she becomes more than just a woman. She becomes a figure in his inner world. A figure that compels, intrigues, and calls him towards something he cannot fully name. Projection is not sustainable forever. Eventually, it must be dismantled for a real relationship to begin. But in the early stages, or when the flame has dimmed, a strategic withdrawal can reawaken the mystery that first drew him in. It reactivates the symbolic dimension, the mythic tension that turns ordinary attraction into archetypal longing. A woman who knows when and how to withdraw does not fear being forgotten. She knows that in her absence, something greater stirs, not just in the man, but in the field between them. The space becomes alive, charged, mysterious. And in that mystery, the chase begins anew. To make a man truly chase you, one must understand that it is not admiration of the polished surface that calls a soul into pursuit, but the encounter with something deeper, something hidden, unresolved, and quietly aching within him. This is where the psychology of the shadow comes in. Every man carries a shadow, the repressed, denied, or unconscious parts of his psyche that he cannot or will not consciously integrate. It is not the woman who flatters his ego who awakens his longing. It is the woman who, consciously or unconsciously, mirrors his shadow back to him, drawing him into the silent gravity of what he has yet to face. The ego seeks affirmation. It wants to be admired, praised, seen as competent, attractive, powerful. But the ego does not chase, it collects. It is the part of him that scans for validation and, once satisfied, often loses interest. When a woman plays only to the ego, she may win momentary attention, but she rarely holds the deeper, unconscious devotion that leads to sustained pursuit. The man may enjoy her presence, may even desire her, but he does not feel compelled. There is no haunting, no ache, there is only transaction. In contrast, the shadow evokes discomfort, and with discomfort, obsession. The woman who mirrors his shadow does not always make him feel good. Sometimes she unsettles him. She challenges his illusions. She stirs emotions he has buried. Through her presence, her emotional texture, even through her silence or refusal to conform to his expectations, she reminds him of something he has lost or denied. It might be vulnerability, it might be chaos, it might be wildness, intuition, shame, or tenderness. Whatever it is something he abandoned long ago for the sake of survival, identity, or social approval. This mirroring does not require confrontation. In fact, it is often subtle. A man may find himself captivated by a woman who seems to irritate him slightly, who disrupts his carefully constructed sense of self. She may speak truths he avoids, express emotions he represses, or carry a kind of freedom he has long forgotten. Her very being becomes a psychic trigger, not because she attacks him, but because she reflects him, not the self he wants the world to see, but the self he has buried deep inside. And in this mirroring, she becomes indispensable to his journey toward wholeness. The woman who mirrors the shadow must be inwardly strong, because the shadow does not enjoy being exposed. At first, the man may resist her, even resent her. He may project negativity onto her, seeing her as too much, or too emotional, too intense. These judgments are not about her. They are the language of disowned aspects of himself. But if she remains anchored in her own truth and does not collapse into appeasement or self-doubt, she becomes not just a mirror, but a catalyst. The man begins to sense that she sees him in a way others do not. Not just the persona he performs, but the raw, unfiltered soul behind it. This creates a different kind of desire, not just erotic, but existential. She becomes a doorway, not to comfort or pleasure alone, but to transformation. She carries the energy of initiation, and in her presence, he begins to awaken to himself. This is painful. But it is also magnetic, for the unconscious knows what it needs, even if the conscious mind resists. The chase begins not because she is hard to get, but because he cannot escape what she evokes in him. Importantly, mirroring the shadow is not about psychological warfare or manipulation. It is not about playing games or diagnosing his trauma. It is about being deeply oneself, a woman who has faced her own shadow and integrated enough of it to hold presence when another man's darkness begins to stir. Her authenticity becomes the mirror. Her refusal to be less than she is becomes the trigger. Her emotional truth, her unwillingness to sanitize her soul for the sake of likability. These are the qualities that reflect back to him all that he has exiled in himself. Sometimes this mirroring occurs through conflict, sometimes through silence, sometimes simply through the refusal to abandon herself to accommodate his comfort. She does not soothe his ego, she beckons his soul. She does not flatter his image, she calls forth his essence. And it is this call that the man cannot ignore. Because within every man lies a deep hunger to be whole, and the woman who unknowingly holds up the mirror to his lost pieces becomes the path toward that integration. The pursuit, then, is not linear. It is not always filled with flowers and sweetness. It is sometimes chaotic, painful, even confusing. But it is also real. It is not driven by the shallow desire to possess, but by the sacred urgency to heal. And the woman, standing firm in her depth, becomes not the object of the chase, but its origin. Not the goal, but the catalyst. Not the ideal, but the reflection. She reminds him not of what he wants to be, but of what he truly is. In the quiet terrain of the unconscious, language does not move in facts or formulas. It flows through symbol, sensation, metaphor, and mood. This is where true connection begins, not in what is said plainly, but in what is evoked without explanation. A woman who desires to awaken longing in a man, to stir the depths of his psyche so that he feels compelled to pursue her, must relinquish the modern obsession with strategy. Strategy belongs to the world of ego, linear, goal-oriented, controlling. But the soul does not chase clarity, it seeks meaning, and meaning arises through symbol. To speak through symbol is to relate from the level of depth, not performance. It is to embody emotion without always defining it, to express desire without always naming it. Symbol is not manipulation, it is resonance. It bypasses the intellect and enters the body, the dream, the ancestral memory. A glance, a pause, a half-finished sentence, a song left playing on a record. These carry more weight than carefully calculated words. In the symbolic, less is more. The point is not to explain, but to awaken. Strategy says, if I do this, he will respond that way. Symbol says, if I feel this and express it truthfully, something in him may begin to stir. One seeks control, the other invites mystery. When a woman chooses symbol over strategy, she stops chasing outcomes. She becomes instead a living expression of archetypal energy, feminine, unpredictable, poetic. Her presence begins to communicate on levels the man may not even consciously understand. He feels drawn in, not by what she does, but by what she evokes. She does not present herself like a problem to be solved. She presents herself like a story to be read slowly, with wonder and uncertainty. This is not about playing hard to get or using mystique as a performance. It is about being deeply attuned to one's inner landscape and allowing that truth to shape the way one communicates. A woman who speaks symbolically trusts that her essence will be felt, even if not immediately understood. She is not afraid of being misread or mysterious. She is not interested in clarity if it comes at the expense of soul. She lets her tone, her rhythm, her silence speak for her. When a man meets a woman like this, his psyche must rise to meet her. He cannot remain in the realm of the literal. He must enter the poetic. He must feel her, not just understand her. And in doing so, he reawakens his own forgotten parts. The dreamer, the artist, the boy who once found meaning in the shape of clouds, in the smell of rain. She does not instruct him to chase her. She inspires the chase by pulling him inward, toward his own depths. Symbol is everywhere, but most people have forgotten how to read it. We live in a world saturated with information but starved for meaning. A woman who still knows the symbolic becomes a rare and precious mirror. The color of her dress, the way she sips her tea, the music she plays when she enters a room, all of it becomes part of the story she tells without telling. And the man, sensitive or not, begins to receive the message not through thought, but through sensation. He senses something sacred, undefined, and vital, something he must follow, even if he cannot name why. To speak through symbol also requires the ability to listen in symbol. It means hearing not just what a man says, but what he cannot say. What he reveals in the pauses, in the slips of the tongue, in the metaphors he reaches for. The woman who speaks symbolically often hears symbolically too. She senses when a man is covering fear with charm, or when a joke masks pain. She responds to these layers not with correction, but with reflection. Sometimes a story of her own, sometimes a look, sometimes nothing at all. In her presence, the hidden begins to surface, not because she demands it, but because she makes space for it. This form of communication slows things down. It resists the hurried pace of modern dating. There is no script, no checklist, no guarantee. There is only the unfolding of meaning, layer by layer, and this slowness, this poetic unfolding, creates the tension that fuels pursuit. A man is not drawn to what he can fully grasp. He is drawn to what continues to reveal itself, like a dream that lingers even after waking. And the woman who embodies this, who speaks and moves in metaphor, becomes the keeper of that dream. Symbol lives in gesture, in intuition, in the spaces between words. It is in the scent of nostalgia that follows her, in the look she gives without explanation, in the way she walks into a room like she belongs to another time. She does not need to explain herself, because she trusts the deeper parts of him will understand, and in this trust, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she is loud or clever or dominant, but because she speaks in the language the soul remembers. The deepest form of desire is not born from the surface of beauty or charm, but from the soul's need to transform. When a woman becomes the object of inner alchemy, she ceases to be simply someone to possess, and becomes instead a vessel through which a man encounters the potential for his own inner change. This is not about being perfect, agreeable, or even always kind. It is about being so profoundly herself that her presence initiates something within him. An ancient, almost forgotten process of psychic reordering. In psychological alchemy, transformation begins not with addition, but with exposure. What is unconscious must be made conscious. What is fragmented must be made whole. The true pursuit, then, is not for a person, but for integration. A man may believe he is chasing a woman, but what he is truly pursuing is the experience of wholeness that she symbolizes to him. She carries in her presence a mysterious quality that triggers his own process of individuation. She becomes, for a time, a symbolic container for his longing to be more than he is, and the pursuit becomes not only romantic, it becomes spiritual. To hold this role, a woman must be inwardly whole enough not to collapse under the weight of his projections. She must have already begun her own alchemical journey, where she has faced her inner chaos, survived it, and emerged not necessarily healed, but aware. This awareness creates a kind of psychic gravity. It cannot be faked or mimicked. It emerges through inner work, solitude, and a fierce refusal to betray the soul for the sake of temporary safety. She becomes magnetic not because she seeks to attract, but because her being resonates with archetypal truth. A man who comes into contact with such a woman feels both drawn and unsettled. She activates him in ways he cannot explain. His mind may resist, but his deeper self begins to awaken. Old patterns begin to shift. He dreams more vividly. He thinks more deeply. He becomes aware of what is missing in his life, not in the sense of scarcity, but in the sense of possibility. She doesn't offer answers. She evokes questions. She doesn't provide comfort. She invokes fire. And this fire becomes the crucible in which his transformation begins. This kind of pursuit is not about winning her affection or claiming her body, though those desires may accompany it. It is about entering into the symbolic space she holds, where he can encounter the lost or denied parts of himself. She may be soft or wild, distant or intimate, but in every gesture there is an authenticity that reflects something eternal. She is not trying to be anyone but herself. And it is this unwavering commitment to inner truth that gives her the power to catalyze change in another. She does not sacrifice herself for his growth. She does not become a therapist, a rescuer, or a vessel for his unprocessed trauma. She knows her limits. She guards her inner sanctum, but she also allows herself to be visible in her full, embodied complexity. She is willing to be seen, not just in her beauty or composure, but in her sadness, her passion, her silence, her rage. This full spectrum humanity creates the container in which alchemy can occur. She becomes not an ideal, but a symbol, a sacred image through which he must pass if he is to meet himself. There is danger in this role, as there always is with transformation. Not every man will rise to the task. Some will run, some will attack, some will attempt to reduce her to a stereotype or a scapegoat because facing themselves is too much to bear. But the ones who are ready, truly ready, will feel something different. A call, perhaps, a weight in the chest, a fascination that borders on obsession. Not because she is manipulative, but because she holds a mirror to the part of him that knows he was made for more. This chase is not a game. It is a rite of passage. The woman becomes a symbolic threshold, a guardian at the gates of his own becoming. If he pursues her with only his ego, he will fail. If he pursues her with reverence, curiosity, and courage, he may find not only her, but himself. The path is never straight. The process is not predictable, but the magnetism remains because it is rooted in truth, in mystery, in the eternal dance between the masculine and the feminine as forces of psyche and spirit. To become the object of inner alchemy is not to seek power over a man. It is to become so deeply rooted in your own soul that your very presence calls others into theirs. It is to live in such integrity that the air around you vibrates with meaning. You are not chased because you perform, but because you transform. You are not pursued because you demand to be, but because your existence makes others yearn to become more fully themselves. In this way, love becomes not a possession, but a fire that forges the soul in silence and symbol, darkness and light.